Alright, so the video on the Brew City Old School Showdown number 2. This is my little tournament recap taking place in Milwaukee, the Midwest Gaming Convention. So the tournament overview starts off with the amount of people we had. We had 5 rounds of Swiss, and then we cut to top 8. You have 45-minute rounds, and once time's called, you essentially have 4 turns to go back and forth to end the game. So when time's called, that's turn 0. Goes to opponent 1, back to you 2, back to opponent 3, and then that after that turn, game's over. Unless it's tied up on prizes, in which it goes to sudden death. The Mana Vault put this on at the Midwest Gaming Convention. They did an excellent job. Pricing was great. We'll get to that later. They also did some raffles and things like that. Everything went pretty smoothly, especially considering the curveballs they were given by the venue. I won't go too much into that, but they did a great job putting on this event and went pretty smoothly. So, kind of the metagame breakdown. It's kind of what you would expect. The most played deck was actually kind of the DFW Hitmonchan Wigglytuff deck, followed by Systall. That number is a little misleading. There are actually 4 because one of those decks was more of a Beedrill deck. Pretty interesting, and you can look at the Limitless page on that if you want to. Followed by kind of the Trad Makers with Electabuzz, pretty good against the Dodrio Maker decks. And then we had some Wigmar, a little bit of Moltres, which we'll see later, and then kind of a smattering of the other decks. That other deck at the bottom is kind of like a Chansey Donk deck, and there was a pretty sweet Alakazam Machamp deck. We'll get to that later as well. So, pretty well spread, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned. So we went into this, yes, we are the baddies. We're playing Systall, which is kind of the BDIF of the format. Pretty standardish looking list, nothing too crazy. We just got some Tech Grass and Water to power up our Scyther and use Psyduck against Magmar if we need to. Won't go into a full deck breakdown, but there's the list if you want to take a look. Pretty standard stuff. So, going into it, the first round of Swiss, we were up against Lucas, who ended up going 3-2. He was running kind of a stock DFW list. He was a newer-ish player. I'm not trying to diss him. I'm just giving you the facts. And I'm happy that more people are coming into the game. And he did very well for this being kind of his first event. After beating him, we took at his prizes because it looked like he was pretty short on energy. 2 of those DCEs were prized, so that was extra hard for him. He was just trying a little too much. We talked about that later. I think he used some of that going forward to help him out a little bit, which was great. I kind of walled him with Scyther in the beginning and then just kind of did Systall sort of things and decked him out. Going into round 2, I was up against Luke, a name that'll come up again because Luke ended up in the top 8 as well. That is not a picture of our game. I forgot to take one during that game. That's a picture of the Nostalgia Critic who was there. I kind of ran into him. Basically a living meme. If you know him, you know. So he was playing a Moltres deck that was heavy on Dittos, which is kind of interesting. Those numbers are also be foreshadowing as well. As you can see, only took 1 loss. I think I had some pretty lucky Lickitung coin flips, to be honest. Then I was just kind of grinding him out, and then I brought in Ghastly to get energy back in our hands so we could gambler more effectively. I think he learned a lesson from that because I don't know if he was too familiar with that kind of out. But that was something he would use later. More on that later as well. In round 3, we're up against Joe, who ended up going 4-3. He would also make it to the top 8. He was running a Trad Maker list, which is a hard matchup for my opponent. I removed a lot of his energy, just kind of wore down his resources, and eventually there's not much he can do against that. So I was able to survive the early game, which is difficult, and then Systall did Systall sort of things. In round 4, we were up against James. He ended up going 5-2 and also making it to the top 8. He was on a Systall deck. However, the interesting part is he had 2 Fujis and no Gamblers, which I didn't find out towards the end of the game, which is something I used going forward, as I'll show you later. And I didn't have the Mew when his Mewtwo hit to start recurring that energy, and he was able to pull off a couple of Fujis because I wasn't expecting 2 of them, to be honest. I also ducked maybe a little too early, and then I got punished because I had one of his Lickitungs confused. I thought, this is pretty safe. But he got through confusion, got me paralyzed, and that gave him a turn to get in and was able to get back into the game. And not begrudging those coin flips because overall I think his coin flips were pretty poor, so not hating on that at all. but we were able to got our first loss off there. Was a little worried that we might bubble out, but we carry on. We go into round 5, hoping we don't go 3-2 and bubble out. But in round 5, obviously, we got the win. We played Benjamin, who also got to the top 8. We played him twice because we played him in the Swiss, and then we played him again in the top 8. So just kind of played him back to back. He was kind of a newerish player. Once again, not hating at all, drawing a little too much, a little too aggressively. Just kind of removed his energies, ground him out, and just took the win that way. He was also friends with Tyfett, who's on TCG1, who got the coolest Decklist award for me. That's not a real award. It's just something I'm saying, and I want to show you that list. Looks something like this. Basic idea is you want to set up Hitmonchan. You kind of stall out with Alakazam, move the damage around, heal up. Pretty fun list. It barely bubbled out. It got 9th, but it's something I might want to run for the channel. So if you're interested in seeing that run, leave a comment down below because that's something I might want to visit. All right, so then cutting to the top 8, even though I showed you one match of it, this is kind of what it looked like. So we have a bunch of stall at the top. We have one Trad Maker, which is cool. We have some DFW lists. That makes sense. It's one of the stronger lists as well. We also have Stall, which makes sense to me as well. And then another Moltres. So lots of stall, some Wigglytuff lists. This looks pretty representative of what the top decks are in base fossil. That makes a lot of sense to me. Also have a picture here of Edgar, who is running DFW. If there's interest in seeing some Edgar audio content, because I'd like to talk to him about his kind of experience of the tournament as well, leave a comment below down below about that as well, if I could speak. I'm a little tired from the tournament still. I had to drive 5 hours right afterwards, so a little dragging. A little foreshadowing as well. Round 7. So I faced up against James. The critical point here is that I know what the game plan is now. But to be honest, at this point, I was kind of dragging. We were getting into like hour 8 of playing Pokemon. I was dragging, as I still am now. But the main game plan was Mewtwo comes out, we kill him on sight. Just kill him dead. Kind of did that in game 1. Just kind of ground down, used Gambler. Gambler's a little more effective than Fuji in most cases. So kind of got that win, just kind of doing the normal plan. In game 2, I completely brain farted. I only had like a Scyther and a Lickitung, and I scooped up my Lickitung and just left the Scyther out there. Not looking at my opponent having 2 energies on a Chansey, and I got blasted, so that one's on me. But then in game 3, it was kind of going as we'd expect. We were kind of grinding out. He went and ducked maybe a little too early, I'm not sure, but our Ghastly was able to survive, get a good lick in, break the duck lock, and then we were able to get in and reverse duck lock and take that win. So maybe a little bit lucky, but that's kind of the reverse of what happened in our Swiss game. So went 2-1 on James. Great dude, very good player. And now that he's seen Gambler in action, I'm sure that's probably going to end up in his list. I also think Tongue Wraps really went in my favor. Like at one point I got 5 in a row, and James missed quite a few. So I will say that was probably a factor as well. And then finally, round 8 versus Luke in the finals. So this is our final loss, obviously. So this is the championship. Luke came back and had learned from our games about Ghastly. In the first game and in the third game, like, I think my deck was playing a joke on me because I didn't find energy in, like, maybe the top, like, 6 or 8 draws, which is crazy. So in the top 12 cards, I didn't have like a single energy in both games at least. It might have been more in one of the games, to be honest, but I really don't remember these games, which is, yeah, it was rough. So I was almost, we ended at the 9 hours of playing Pokemon and playing Stall. I feel like my brain was mush at that point. He played very tight. It's kind of ran me out of resources in those games where I didn't start with energy because he could pressure me. I couldn't pressure back, so just very solid gameplay. I probably also missequenced some things. I was dying at that point, so that probably was a factor as well. Ditto was actually really good at like keeping off Ghastlies, keeping off Mewtwo's, so a pretty smart include. Maybe something to think about if you're running Moltres is that heavy Ditto package. Game 2 is the only one I did pretty well in. I was very aggressive in that one. I was able to get like Chansey set up and take a couple of knockouts very quickly, um, and just took it that way. But yeah, Luke ended up taking it 2-1. So hey, more power to him. Newish player, but he'd been grinding, working his chops. Very solid player, great dude too. So kind of the results: finished in second place. Your boy didn't win. We always a maid of honor. Insert your joke there. I'm happy for Luke though. He was a great player and a great dude. Like I had to spend multiple hours with him, and it was a good time. Manifold also gave me $175 in store credit, so they didn't have to do that. There was no entry fee because you had to pay to get into the event, so they didn't charge anything. So extremely generous of them. Very great dudes. Great for the format. They do it just for the love of the game. So thank you again to the Mana Vault. Also got this shirt from one of the booths. Makes me very happy, so I wanted to post that up there. And I'm just kind of surprised by how great this community is. Not all hobby groups are this nice, and like you could see in other games people coaching each other up. It's just a great environment. You guys always surprise me, so one love to all you guys, and then shout out to Dan and some other people who came up and were like, hey, you make YouTube videos, I watch your videos. So thank you for saying something. It always surprised me that people actually watch these, so pretty cool. That'll be it for a little bit. I might make some content here in the future, but it's going to be a second. If you want to see any of those things I talked about in the video, leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you around playing some Pokemon. Peace.